on Monday, I have a costume party for my work, which is I work remotely, so it's going to be a Zoom costume party.
What's your costume?
I'm going to be Spider-Man. Going to put a green screen behind me. You can see the green screen over there, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going to turn it into a New York City. And here's my big plan to hopefully win the contest is I've devised a way to turn my webcam upside down so that I can be wearing my Spider-Man costume, but come up from the bottom of the frame, and it looks like I'm dropping down from the top in New York. This is my big plan.
Crazy.
I haven't tested it. I'll let you know how it works, but that's a big curtain that will hang behind me and then create the illusion of New York City, a place that I've never been.
That's going to be cool. You got to break that. You got to go out to New York.
I agree. It sounds really cool. And I think this is the time of year to go to New York.
It gets better and better every year. Every year too, it gets better and better. Like 15 years ago, like Union Street was all messed up and busy traffic. And then they just like shut it down from traffic, and they put all these nice like bike paths and like sitting areas all throughout it. And when people proposed it, they were like, that's crazy. You guys are stupid. That's crazy. And then as soon as they did it, everyone was like, how did we ever have it any other way? This is so delightful. It was just like night and day. It was totally.
It does seem like humans often have to be dragged kicking and screaming into better like
it's crazy.
better setup while they're complaining the whole time, and then they're like, what? Why didn't we do this earlier? I'm like, okay, so you still have to complain. It's just now that you have to complain about the other thing. Yeah.
Right. So I have a solution today, Scott.
Okay.
It's
what do
a
you got?
little bit. It's a little.
Well, welcome to Solutions for the Multiverse, everyone. I'm Scott
Welcome,
Maupin.
everyone. I'm Adam Brous. We come to you with a new solution every week. This one is not really necessarily a solution. It's more like an invention. Inventions from the multiverse.
I like it. Okay.
It's still going to be a solution, though, in some ways, because we'll see. You'll see. As a podcast producer, especially, you're the expert. Actually, you're the expert.
Okay.
In this episode.
Yes, finally,
because it's a podcast idea.
Okay.
And maybe
there are not a lot of podcast ideas out there, so this will be good. This will be nice.
Yeah. So what if we just like sit around and banter, and we're like two comedians? This is a totally new idea for a podcast.
What unfiltered, right? We're going to talk about anything.
It's going to be unfiltered.
This conversation could go anywhere.
We could talk about pizza.
Hey, I will talk about pizza. That's
you do. You love pizza.
I do love pizza.
We have to have some pizza next time.
I'm not against
breakfast. Are you into cold breakfast pizza?
Yes, I'll do.
Me too.
Well, wait, when you say breakfast pizza, are you talking about like pizza with eggs and bacon? And
I wasn't, but now I am.
That's okay too. But just regular pizza, cold and eating it for breakfast.
Pizza from the night before.
I'm in favor.
Have you ever had breakfast? The other one, the breakfast pizza that actually has eggs on it and stuff.
I feel like I might have. In the course of my life, maybe that's come up, but I don't know.
Okay, tell me the weirdest pizza you've ever had, the weirdest pizza topping.
I mean, when I went to England for the first time and they put corn on a pizza, I was like, wait a second,
Crazy.
What? Now, total convert. I will put corn.
Seriously?
I ate pizza last night and put corn on it myself, and I'm happy with it. The other thing is when I went to Japan, they love to take a pizza and then kind of drizzle a squiggly line of mayonnaise across the entire pizza.
Oh yeah,
that's a big thing in Japan that you have to either watch out for and say, okay, now don't mayonnaise my pizza, please. But people love it there, and I haven't adopted that.
You haven't converted.
No. Corn. Yes,
you haven't put
mayonnaise,
two and two together. Corn and mayonnaise.
I have not.
Oh God.
Although Japan also liked a corn on a pizza situation. They were.
So how are you? What is your opinion on tuna fish on pizza? That's what Germans do.
Seems
Germans
tricky, but okay.
Tuna fish.
Let's
on
try
pizza.
it out.
It actually is pretty good.
You balance it out.
It sounds gross, but it's actually pretty good. It's like a tuna melt.
Yeah, it's like a
hot,
salty
cheesy
sort of
tuna.
Sure.
Yeah, with bread. It's really just a tuna melt. It tastes pretty good. Okay, my weirdest one that I think sticks with me in Wisconsin. I don't know if you know, but Wisconsin is actually famous for really weird pizzas.
Oh.
So we have weird pizza toppings.
I did not know this.
Into that. Yeah,
okay.
It's a normal thing.
Lay it on me.
Like New York pizza is like thin and it's got pepperoni.
Right.
It's classic Italiano.
Chicago pizza is deep.
Yeah, Chicago's deep.
The deep dish.
Yeah, and it's got stuff in
And
it.
those are the only two types of pizza. Detroit
right.
pizza I now have learned is square.
Square,
which is
crispy on the
really
edges.
rude
Ooh,
since
good.
they're all about automotive, like wheels and stuff. That they were like, our pizzas are square though. You're like,
Our
okay,
pizzas
okay.
are also cars. Yeah. So Wisconsin pizzas are like hokey. They're like hokey, weird things on the pizza. But anyway, so there's a place called Glass Nickel Pizza in Madison, Wisconsin that has really weird ones, like cordon bleu pizza, which is actually pretty good. And
with
they also have
chicken
like
and ham and cheese.
Yeah, and chicken, and cheese. Yeah, and then they also have like they have one that's called the Fetalicious, which is just like feta and like Greek kind of style olives and feta and stuff, and it's really good. But it's like, there's another place that's called Ian's Pizza that's downtown, and and actually it's all over now. But they have one that's macaroni and cheese pizza.
Ooh, I'm in.
This is
I'm already
good pizza.
in.
This is a
for
good
the title
pizza.
alone. I'm in.
Yeah, it's really good. And that sort of sticks with me as kind of the weirdest pizza.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had one at a party in San Francisco years ago that had pears on the like really thin sliced pear on the pizza.
nice.
I think the cheese was either like a gorgonzola or a goat cheese or some other kind of cheese, but it was.
This was a bougie pizza.
It was a bougie pizza, and it was at a weird house party, but it was very delicious. I remember it to this day. This was probably 10 years ago at least, but I remember
by weird house party
pizza.
in San Francisco. You mean a swingers party, right? So that
I
was
don't.
Pizza.
It was
everyone was naked eating pear pizza with gorgonzola.
I don't even remember how I came to go to this because I don't go to parties and like I don't remember the circumstances. I think it was a friend of a friend or something, but
yeah,
they were like a weird pizza party, and maybe that's what drew me in is that I was gonna get to try a bunch of different types of pizza. Yeah. So that's how to trick me into your house party if you want to trap me.
So here's the idea. So the idea is what I call asynchronous podcasting or an asynchronous podcast episode. And we can do it. I think we'll even do it in this episode. So we'll stop early. Like we'll talk about the solution a little bit, but then we'll stop early and I think we'll try to actually
do an actual
implement it and do it in here.
Yeah.
Or if we talk longer, we could do like the next episode and they'll come out together, 2 episodes, this episode and then the next one maybe is asynchronous and it's its own.
Let's see how it goes.
And we'll see how it goes. And
so
then it's
asynchronous. You're saying not at the same time. Am I decoding that correctly?
Yeah. So it means like it's like texting instead of a phone call. Like, I get to say something and then it sits and then you get to read it on your own time. And once you've read it, you can think and then decide on your own time to respond.
Right. Instead of a chat message where I see you like responding in real time.
Or we're talking about like this conversation. We're talking about this is synchronous because like we're both hearing and talking at the same time.
Right.
So right now for the podcast we're recording, we always get together in my house or we get together or we're on Zoom and we're recording at the same time. It's synchronous. But I was thinking, well, why not have it just be like asynchronous where I can be recording a podcast just by responding and then occasionally maybe there'd be some like hot back and forth where we are kind of responding very quickly back and forth. But then otherwise it might be like, it might be an hour or a day later where then I respond and then you respond.
I was going to say, is this your way of telling me that I interrupt you too much and that this would be a way around where you would never have to worry about me cutting in? You finally get to finish a thought for once.
I mean, I thought it was the other way around. I thought I was interrupting you too much.
Well, no, absolutely you do. So I'm thankful for that.
I'm solving my own problem here.
Do you know how much genius I would have spit out if you hadn't cut me off just then? Oh, man. Would have been so smart.
You're right. Interruption is a problem, but this is more like just, I don't know. This is more like one where I don't know what the outcome will be, but if it's a new modality, it's a new possibility, and a lot of other media is asynchronous, like Slack and text messaging, and they're super popular. Those are like the most popular kinds of communication.
Yeah.
But podcasting is the only synchronous. And actually, I was having a really hard time even kind of figuring out how to implement this.
Like with the technology?
Yeah, like there isn't really any way to just be like, bam, 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 and then have it just like output very cleanly into like a single back-to-back audio.
It seems
situation.
like you'd have to do each response separately and then stitch them together afterward, which
I know
may be the way we do it, or if we
work.
discover a different way, we'll have to talk about that. Here's what I'm worried about though. If I say a really funny joke, are you going to record yourself laughing, or do you just skip that part and then it's just dead?
We can put, if we produce it, we could put laugh track in.
Perfect. People, I just get one recording of you going ha 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 ha, and then I put that in whenever I think that I've made a good joke. I just slot in your laugh track. So
no, we can laugh right at you. So if you said something really funny and you sent it, and I could start my recording and be like, "That is really funny," ha ha ha, and then continue, But it's going to sound weird. My worry is that it's going to sound really choppy and unnatural to listen to it through.
Like it may be just a series of voicemails instead of an actual conversation.
That's what I think it will be, actually.
Well, we're professional.
But we'll see. Yeah. We'll see, because we're going to be the first people to ever do it.
And we may be the last people to ever do it and discover exactly why it's not a thing that's done. But
right.
That's our job. We got to figure these things out, right?
We're on the very forefront. This is like Union Square.
Okay.
How could it be, how was it ever? Maybe this will be the new way all podcasts are recorded, because it's much easier to do, right? Because you don't have to meet, you don't have to be like, and you can think very thoughtfully about what the person last said and have these like really nice, then full sort of fledged responses.
The podcast version of, writing letters, like, dearest Adam, how do the days treat you? It has been many weeks since we last communicated. And in the interim, I have had many occurrences from which I now shall share. Wait, do I have to talk all weird now?
It'll be like Civil War letters.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'll do it.
So maybe we should, so let's plan. So we're going to do this maybe as another episode, maybe as this episode. Well, either way, these go together.
Yes.
This one and that one.
The idea and then the execution of that idea.
Yes.
Good or bad, however it turns out.
Will we record afterwards to say what we are? Maybe we should record afterwards too and critique it. How did it go?
Sure.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
And then that whole thing might be one episode or maybe it's 3 episodes that are released all on the same day.
We have flexibility.
Okay. We'll try it. Okay, should we wrap up this?
We'll wrap up this portion. The next thing you hear
next,
either on this episode or in this feed would be the results of what we make.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Well, I like the idea. Thanks for joining us. If this is the end of the episode or not, if it's the middle of the episode, I mean, the listener actually knows more than we do at this point because they can look at the runtime of the file that they've downloaded. So they'll know we're sitting here going, I wonder what we're going to do. And they're like, I already know what you're going to do. Get on with it.
Okay, we'll get on with it.
All
See you in a little bit, everyone. Bye.
Bye. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Scott. You are now inside the episode. I should play like an Inception sound. Maybe I'll do that right here. But welcome back. We are now doing the experimented episode. I say we, even though I'm here by myself. I've come down to Texas to visit my parents, and Adam is back in California. Not anywhere near us. We haven't coordinated this at all. This is the heart of the asynchronous episode where I talk into the microphone by myself, send it to him. He talks and sends it back. We'll see how long this will take and how disjointed or jointed it'll seem. But we're kicking it off. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying this, and I hope we get something good. All right, Adam, what do you got to say?
That's so interesting. So there's like a couple different ways to say it. Well, hey, okay, well, kicking off. Thanks everybody for hanging with us as we do this little experiment in asynchronous podcasting. I guess, we can address each other. We can address the audience. It's just like the podcast, but it's just done. Yeah, not synchronously. I don't get it's so simple, but maybe it'll turn out to be something interesting. Let's see. I wonder what the kind of pros and cons are to this format as we start to explore it.
Well, classically, everyone's biggest complaint about podcasting, besides that there aren't enough of them, is that it sounds like the conversation flows too easily. I wish it would just sound more stutter-stepped, like you guys weren't in the same spot and you had to respond like a walkie-talkie less than a telephone. So if this takes off, we could maybe sell people on walkie-talkies to replace cell phones so that we could just kind of move asynchronous communication all the way into other corners of everyone's life.
So you joke, but look at the history of text messaging, right? Text messaging has exploded and email totally exploded. I mean, that's probably the way most people do most of their communication is text message and email, totally asynchronous. And now the emergence of Slack, totally asynchronous. And so I mean, it's true. You do want, you're right though, obviously podcasting, no one ever said, boy, I really wish this was more sort of awkward and stutter stop. But yeah, asynchronous podcasting. I'm starting to notice that I get to think more about what we're talking about and think more about what I'm going to say because there's so much time in between when you speak and then when I speak. And I can listen back to what you said before, or what I said before I message again. So that maybe makes it more thoughtful and maybe even more, could be in another podcast, not this podcast, but it could be more researched in another podcast that was more focused on, sort of facts and science and stuff. We're just out there coming up with new wacky ideas. But yeah, so I think it could take off.
Interesting, because I almost feel like I have too much time to think. Like I'm in risk of overthinking what I'm going to say, or I will try to completely plan out what I'm going to say ahead of time and then feel like I'm reciting the things that I wrote in my head instead of just kind of going off the cuff and winging it. So maybe we're just two different types of thinkers, but I feel like maybe I have too much time now, but it's definitely interesting. I mean, it's nice to be able to just jump in for a minute here or a minute there whenever I have time, especially right now. It's for everyone listening right now, it's holiday time. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving. And so there's a lot going on. I'm down at my family's house and just the time to sit there and record like a 2-hour podcast would not exist. So being able to just jump in for a minute it does have its advantages. I'll admit it, but I don't know. It feels weird. I feel like I'm overthinking my comments or overthinking what I'm going to say. And I mean, actually, even more than that, I notice my tendency to want to hyper perfectionalize, like be hyper perfectionist and want to erase what I just recorded and then re-record it, but with slightly different words or slightly different intonation or whatever. Instead of it's the same part of me that's not good at playing a video game and just being okay. Like I want to reset as soon as I mess up so that I'm just doing the same part over and over again and not really, I'm not a video game guy. This is why,
Okay. So we have some cons, which is that it's kind of awkward, but we have some pros, which is that maybe you get some more time to think. So it's got some pros and cons. Yeah. I guess maybe this is also like, the flight at Kitty Hawk, right? Like this is like the first, I've never heard of an asynchronous podcast. So this is sort of like the first flight. Who knows? Maybe other groups or people can do it better or do it differently and see what happens. But I think it's a pretty interesting thing. Is it a solution to any problem? Not really. I'm finding that I'm listening to everything we said and then speaking. So it's actually taking like extremely a much, much longer time to do than if we just sit down and do it and talk straight out. So yeah, maybe that's another con, but it's also still pretty interesting, especially because we're trying to have an episode about asynchronous podcasting. But what if it was like an episode done asynchronously, but about some other topic? Would that be different too? Maybe we should propose a secondary topic or something.
Okay, here's a secondary topic then. It's winter now in a lot of places. That means cold weather, snow, ice, all sorts of inclement, unfriendly things for being outside. You and I live in the Bay Area. It's not so bad. It gets a little chilly, but that's about it. But we've both lived in places where it gets way worse than that. And as a proponent of bikes, this is where I see cars and, vehicles like that come in very handy, both for having enclosed spaces to protect you from sliding around and also warm spaces to, fight that weather situation. But as a proponent of bikes, what do you do when it's an icy, snowy situation? Like, is there a bike-based alternative for that? Do you put like chains on your tires, or what is there other than just getting out and walking and bundling up and all sorts of winter clothing. Is there an option? I mean, is it like jet skis? Not jet skis. What are snowmobiles? Is it snowmobiles or what? I mean, what do you got? What kind of things would you use in that situation?
So, are you asking for like a solution from the multiverse or just sort of the pragmatic answer? I think bike snowmobiles, right? So you bike and there's like a tread on the back, like a big fat tread. No, I'm just kidding. I think Madison, Wisconsin, where I'm from, is an extremely cold place. It's in Wisconsin, and they have bike paths, and they plow the bike paths when it snows. There's budget just for there's a huge multi tens of millions of dollars budget to plow the roads. There's a tiny $200,000 budget or whatever to plow all the bike paths every morning if it snows. So it snows and then you can still bike on it. And people might think, oh, that's really cold or that's really whatever. But if you wear some gloves and then you get on your bike and you have something to protect against the wind, you actually warm up really fast just from biking, and it feels really good because you're not sweaty when you get somewhere because you're being cooled by the air as you go. So I mean, I think you shouldn't, we shouldn't let perfection be the enemy of the good. So yeah, all of California, all of the Southwest, all of the South, they all, Hawaii, all these places can use bikes 100% of the time. And then in the Northwest and the East Coast, they can use bikes 70% of the time. And in the Midwest, you can use them maybe 60 or 70% of the time. During the winter, okay, maybe fewer people are going to bike, but then that's why you have multimodal transit, right? Bikes are just one mode of transportation. I would not say that I'm a totally fanatically pro bicycle. I would just say that I think bikes are the fastest way, protected bike lanes are the fastest way to a sensible relationship with cars. So yeah, that's an answer. What do you think of that? Take that, stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Ha ha.
Okay, fair enough. Another thing, jumping back out to the podcast about the podcast situation. One thing I'm noticing is that, I mean, my last comment was recorded late at night and I was, I'm at my parents' house, so I'm trying to be quiet. You can tell. The thing I'm noticing is that I come to each of these segments with wildly different energy, or it's possible that I could jump in with wildly different energy from point to point, which is something you don't contend with a synchronous podcast, with a usual podcast. When we're talking, if I'm up or if I'm down or whatever, it's a consistent level of energy throughout. And here, depending on the time of day, depending on the circumstances, how I'm feeling, whatever, I might jump in for my comment with low energy. I might jump in with extra high energy. I might have to be quiet because I'm trying not to wake anyone up or whatever, or I could be loud and boisterous. It's really all over the map. And I think kind of contributes to the disjointed feeling or whatever, what have you about. I don't think it aids the listening experience, if that makes sense. I don't think it helps out in that respect. Even though it may be more convenient for us as hosts, which you're saying you listen to the whole thing over and over again. I don't know if it's even more convenient for us, but I think that's a part that I wanted to take note of because I'm noticing that as I listen back as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's another good observation. The difference in energy. Yeah, I mean, this is a good experiment because I've never heard of anyone doing this, but maybe no one's done it because they found exactly what we're finding, which is that it's not as fun, certainly, as like sitting down in real time and like having a conversation. And then it has these kind of costs and, these kind of cons, and the pros don't really stack up. And then the final product, isn't as maybe as good either. So yeah. But it's still an interesting experiment though.
Adam, that's actually a really good thing I wasn't even thinking about, was the fun aspect of it. And you're right. I was focused on the connectivity because it doesn't feel like we're as connected, but there's also it kind of saps some of the fun out of the conversation. And I think that does translate into the product, but also, like when I'm thinking about asynchronous communication, a lot of times it's for productivity, for doing things on people's own schedules and things. And that's sort of the antithesis of what you're doing when you're podcasting. You want connectivity, but you want to have fun in the conversation. I think the only place where, not the only place, I haven't considered everything, but what I was thinking about is the place where fun comes in with asynchronous is kind of like on a back and forth if you're flirting with someone, or having that sort of witty repartee thing where you're, the pause in between, the anticipation for the response is part of it. And that happens with flirting. But a lot of times when we're texting or emailing or doing things that are asynchronous, it's for productivity, and you're not angling it toward a fun experience or toward something where you're like, yeah, this is geared toward fun. And that is absolutely true. It really is different when we're doing it like this than when we're just going back and forth and riffing or whatever. Yeah, that's a good point I hadn't even considered. But well, it is a good thing to try out, and it's an interesting experiment. And maybe it's about time to wrap up this version of it. We'll come back and we can wrap up things together or not. But yeah, that's a thing. I think we're exploring it and we're finding out the strengths and weaknesses of it and evaluating it. I mean, we're not going to revolutionize podcasting with this discovery or with this process, but it's something to consider. It certainly is interesting to try out the technology and to think about podcasting in a different way. I find that to be a valuable experiment nonetheless. So, all right, what do you think? You got a way to wrap us up here, sir? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I think we're ready to wrap up on the async side. I think it was cool because you did I tried to say let's use WhatsApp and like just send messages back and forth, and you were like, I can find a better thing, and you just like went into like the belly depths of the internet and found this app Soundtrap that we've been using, and it's been pretty cool. I mean, I wonder if when you try experiments like this when new ideas, I mean, I'll put it in a bigger kind of solutions from the multiverse context here. When you try completely new ideas, there's like splash effects. It's almost like when NASA like tries to send a man to the moon, they also invent like new toothbrush heads or whatever. Like you get this splash effect when you try and when you explore completely new ideas. And so completely new ideas are a good part of a culture, of a company, of a country, of a university, of whatever, of a family. And so anyways, yeah, I think this is kind of an example of that, is like we're really learning about the medium, and we're learning about the technology that's possible to use, all just because we had the sort of wackiness or kind of commitment to try completely new ideas. So hey, there's a little shout out to the value of being being a solutioner, being an SFMer who values complete new ideas, which is kind of the ethos of the podcast. So yeah, okay, cool. Well, yeah, we'll circle back and we'll record some more in person and see kind of sync up and feel the difference, feel the contrast between the async and the synchronous podcasting. So thanks everybody for hanging with us as we try this little experiment.
I just got back from my trip, but
yeah,
when I was on my trip, we, over the course of like a week, several days, we recorded that podcast chunk you just heard, and we did it asynchronously. So yeah, it was completely. What did you think of it?
I was disappointed because I thought it would be like this. I thought it would have like the kind of convenience of like texting or the convenience of like using Slack or email, but it just didn't have that convenience. It was very like jerky and sluggish, and like I had to review by listening to like what was said, and then like when I heard us through, it was like very disjointed and weird.
The energy did go, it bounced up and down, which we acknowledged like during it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, the more convenient part you lose when you have to kind of backtrack and look at everything and be like, oh, right, catch my brain up to where was the conversation before that. It's not like I guess because with audio you can't skim the messages above.
Right.
You have to listen to them at speed or at whatever.
Right. And also you're saying such like in-depth things that it's not just like a text message like, hey, where you at? Oh, I'm here. Oh, there. Like what you don't, it's easy to remember what's being said.
And when you're looking at a text thread, you're seeing, I mean, you can't help but
3 or 4
read.
messages,
You can't help but read the message right above, and it triggers you back into that.
Unless
With
you have
the
a
audio,
beeper
you
like
have to go
me. I just
back
have a
and,
beeper, so I can only see the last text.
What? Really?
I just have a beeper. Yeah, it's on my belt.
Oh, that's really handy. I bet.
That's cool. Yeah.
You can that way you know if you have a phone from a call from your landline.
That's right. That's right. I can. No, but you're right. You're right. It's the texting and even email. You might say more in-depth things, but you kind of don't reference 5 emails ago. Usually, you pretty much just reference like what they just said, and then you respond with whatever it is. So yeah, it was definitely. I think it was now maybe listening back to it, maybe we'll have different opinions. But right now, from having had to do it,
it'll edit together a little more smoothly.
Yeah.
But I think still it's gonna be very well. It'll be noticeably different up and down, like energy wise.
And I think it makes a big difference when you're editing whether like as one person finishes speaking, you like have the other person kind of begin speaking as if they were kind of like in the same room. If they're like fully apart, so there's like a teeny quarter second of dead air between the two, I think that's going to make it sound really disjointed.
Oh.
There's a guy on YouTube who does these screen rants where he like makes fun of movies. Do you ever watch that guy?
Nope.
It's really good. I recommend it. He like points out basically all the plot holes in movies in this really funny way.
I may have. Is it just called Screen Rant?
Yeah.
I may have seen.
Yeah, and it's a guy, and it's just back and forth. It's him playing writer and producer. It's like a really stupid producer with a really stupid writer, and they're like, "You got it." He always starts off, "So, you got another movie for me?" And then the writer's like,
I don't.
"Yes, I do, sir." And then they go into it, and it's really funny. I mean, if you go back like 4 years ago when he was developing the concept, he's like more stilted. But if you watch the ones he's done recently, they're so funny. It's really good. Anyways.
But he has it like really edited close.
Well, he even says in like a how did I make that? Like he kind of reveals his whole process. Just I don't know, he's a YouTuber, and he's like, at first I had them like where one guy finished speaking and then the other guy started speaking after, and it sounded like totally stilted.
Right.
And all I did was go and just put them so that as the other person finished speaking, before they cut away from that view of them, you hear the other guy speaking, and then it cuts to him in video. Makes sense. That made it feel like they were in the same room having a conversation. Whereas if the audio was always the same for who was like you were looking at, then it sounded really fake. So I don't know. Maybe there's something in editing that does it. I don't know.
I used to listen to a radio show called the Phil Hendry Show.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was the host, Phil, he was interviewing a weird caller who had some like outrageous viewpoint, and he would be like civil at first, and then they would start arguing and like yelling at each other and like cutting each other off and interrupting. And then it would be so incendiary,
just like this podcast.
Well, it would be so incendiary.
No, just like this podcast.
That callers would call in to argue with the guest.
Okay.
And the trick is that Phil was both the host and the guest every time. He was doing a voice and hitting a button that would like change his voice over between phone voice and radio voice.
Wow.
And he was arguing with himself, and he was so good at cutting himself off and like changing between the two personas. It was flawless, and he would trick because every caller was a new caller who hadn't figured out that was what was going on. And they're arguing with a persona who had wild ideas, which are insane.
Yeah.
And it's just the entertainment is for the rest of the audience who knows what the bit
So
is.
you're saying that this guy's so talented he can do that, but we can't even make it sound like we're in like the same room together.
No, I'm saying he's
we're
doing
so not talented.
No, he's doing the opposite of what we were doing, which is
he's in the same room with himself.
More than one, one of himself in the same area at the same time.
Oh, perfect.
We were spreading out time and space.
It also was really demanding. Like every now and then, you'd be like, "I messaged you. It's your turn. It's your turn. It's your turn." And I would be like, "I'm having a panic attack."
It's like bugging someone to play a game of chess.
Yeah, so that was annoying.
I wanna
not that you personally, but the model itself inspired that kind of behavior, and so was bad. And it'd be like 9 p.m. and I'd be like in bed and I'd be like, oh, I guess I should do this work. And it was totally misplaced, you know? So yeah, I definitely think it was like maybe just like email and text and Slack, it like the work like invades our lives through those channels.
Well, then you're like, now I didn't create myself a podcast where I can do it at a small amount of time. It's now never
now all
ends.
the time.
It never ends.
And it becomes a
anytime
to-do all the time.
There's no end point where I can go done. Put it in the box.
That's bad.
Put it in the box and ship it.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for going on that experiment
that was
with
fun.
us.
I mean,
you have to try new models and
now
methods.
if it does get famous in the future and someone else figures it out, we're at the top part of that Wikipedia article, meaning like before the famous version, these two young men in the Bay Area tried asynchronous
deeply confused.
An ill-fated attempt was had in the year 2023. I don't know why future Wikipedia would be more old-timey.
Yes. Like, very august, very old-timey.
Welcome to Wikipedia.
Ye old Wikipedia.
Which article shall we give to your providence today?
Excellent. You have chosen random. Have you used the random feature
No.
on Wikipedia? It's so fun.
What kind of psycho is going random on Wikipedia?
It's fun. You press
What do you
random
do?
and it just you click random and it
Okay.
gives you a totally random article on Wikipedia. You just learn something.
When you Google,
It's usually like, this is a province in Australia or something.
hold on. When you Google something, are you the guy that uses the I'm feeling lucky button?
Every time.
No.
I'm always feeling lucky.
Never clicked that button.
I should
That
become
button.
a gambler.
What does that just serve you up one result?
It serves out the top result.
Oh, that's kind of boring. I thought it
But if
just
you do
randomly
that, you
picked
don't
one.
see any ads. Anti-capitalist button.
I have ad blockers. I don't see any ads.
You don't see
anyway.
Google ads?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. My ad blocker still lets me see Google ads.
Well,
Probably
maybe
'cause
different ad blockers.
I'd like to. I actually
We'll
would
talk
like
to you off
see,
mic.
I'd like to see Google ads.
Oh, well, then maybe you're not blocking them on purpose.
I don't mind sponsored. I mean, yeah, I don't mind. That's cool. Somebody like wants me to see those. They might be right.
So you're going to Wikipedia. You're hitting random. What kind of stuff are you going to find?
It's actually pretty boring. It's usually like really, but sometimes that's the thing. Like,
Geographical feature.
yeah, it's like something or like some extremely minor
A chemical
person in history, like extremely minor,
Mm.
like not important person, but they wrote a little Wikipedia page about him. Yeah, but it is fun because in every 10th one, you actually like find like, whoa, I would have never ever known that like in this weird place at this weird time, this weird thing happened. You know, so it's pretty good.
That's fun.
Well,
Okay,
we
I
should
didn't
wrap
even know.
up.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for listening and riding along with this wild ride.
Stick tuned to next week where we will have a completely synchronous podcast.
Yes,
Back to the ways of old.
ye old podcast.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.